Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Whitwer. Today my guest is Todd Bumgardner. Todd is a strength conditioning coach, author, and outdoorsman, with duties that range from training Tier 1 tactical operators to owning and operating a training gym in Northern Virginia to training backcountry hunters. He definitely gets around. When he's not training folks, writing, or operating one of his businesses, Todd is hunting, fishing, or wandering through the woods somewhere. His work has been featured in the Journal of Mountain Hunting, Backcountry Journal, T-Nation, Bodybuilding.com, Men's Health, and Men's Fitness, amongst others. In this conversation, Todd and I talked through his journey into the world of strength conditioning. Being a collegiate professional athlete myself, I really resonated with Todd's journey as it was similar to mine. Looking back, we talked through how we might have done things differently had we known this was the field we wanted to get into right away. We talked through how Chris, his business partner, and him completely changed their business model after the pandemic hit, and if in hindsight it was the right decision. We dive into how he manages to operate 3 separate businesses and a really cool strategy he uses to prevent burnout. I drill him on where he thinks the industry is going and what a new coach should be thinking about to have a successful career. Like all of my interviews, there will be some twists, some turns, and some surprises. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Todd Bumgardner, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me. It's always nice to talk to you, Trevor.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So this podcast is all about like coaches' stories. And I think it's always important to start a story at the beginning. And I mean, we could really go anywhere with this, but I think keeping it in the realm of coaching, I mean, what ultimately got you into, or at least on the path to this profession? Were there any mentors or were there any experiences early on that you're like, cool, that's why I want to be a strength conditioning coach?
Yeah, it's probably because I started lifting weights with my brother when I was like 11 or 12 years old. My brother's about 11 years older than I am. And so when he was in college, he would drag me along to the gym with him and put weights in my hand and teach me what to do. And it just made me fall in love with going to the weight room and with lifting weights. So that would be the first thing. And then soon after that, when I was like 14, I got into powerlifting.
Okay.
And so that and football and I just loved lifting. And that's really what started the whole thing of me deciding to be a strength coach.
Were you doing powerlifting because, like, for the sport, or were you just doing it because of football?
It started for a football thing, but then it was like I liked it, and then okay. I got really good at it really fast. Like I was deadlifting over 400 pounds when I was like 14 years old. So I'm built like a crane. And so that then it turned into that, and then powerlifting became my spring sport. Like I stopped playing baseball and I started doing powerlifting. Yeah.
Okay. And then competing in high school?
I did. I competed in high school. I took a break in college because I played college football. And then I started for a few years again after college. And then I stopped when I was 26.
Okay. So was the path then, I mean, I'm interested in this obviously. And then you went to college to play football. And then, you got to figure out what you're going to do with your life. So was it like, I like lifting and I like exercise?
Kind of. I mean, it was kind of like that. So my original plan out of when I was coming out of high school was to go to college because honestly, I wanted to go to college because I wanted to play football. That was really the only reason I wanted to go to college. But the plan was to contract with the Army, and I wanted to try to get into the Ranger Regiment. Like that was my first. And I had my family at the time talked me out of doing it, and I regret them talking me out of doing it. As a 36-year-old man looking back on my life, like you always regret the things that you didn't do, right? So I regret not taking that swing. But I was in school, again, based on advice that, because I didn't have my head on straight about exactly what I wanted to do. So I was getting a degree in psychology, and I was going to get my teacher certificate to be a special education teacher. And so I was doing this and going to my classes, and really what I would end up doing is going to the library at night and checking out either Kurt Vonnegut books, or I would be on T Nation or Elite FTS, or printing out some kind of research studies, and I would be reading those instead of doing my schoolwork. And so I got to the point where I was like probably the beginning of my junior year, where I was like, I'm not sure why I'm fighting this anymore. Like, this is the thing that I want to do, and this is my chance to actually go and swing hard at something and be good at something. And so I finished my psychology degree, but I started taking some classes to be able to go to graduate school for exercise science. Because at that time I was like, well, I feel like that's what I have to do because I don't have this education, this undergraduate education in it. Going back, I don't necessarily think that I needed to do that. But it was just this switch in my brain where I was like, I'm actually kind of done listening to what everybody else thinks I should do, and I'm just going to do what I want to do, and I want to train. I want to be a strength and conditioning coach. And at that point, it was at the collegiate level, like Division I. I wanted to be a big time Division I coach. And I started looking into that path, and I was like, that's probably not for me because I don't really want to wait 20 years to be able to do the thing that I want to do, So so that was when I got an internship at Victory Sports Performance and Fitness in State College, Pennsylvania, and that's where I met Chris Merritt, and then our whole love affair started, and we are here where we are today. But that was it, man. It was just like I was just done listening to what everybody else wanted me to do. And I was like, even if I fail, I'm swinging at this. This is what I'm doing.
So did you find out that you didn't want to be a college strength and conditioning coach while you were in your master's? I assume you were helping out and doing that kind of thing. And you're like just looking at talking to people. Like, how did you figure that out?
It was a lot of conversations about like looking for like another, like a lateral move for a graduate assistantship or something to work myself in the door or to be an assistant coach somewhere. And I was like looking at the path and talking to people, and essentially, I'm all for like suffering for your art and climbing the ladder and taking and paying your dues and everything. But, I grew up as a poor kid from central Pennsylvania, and I was kind of sick of being poor, and I didn't want to keep doing that. So I was like, well, I'd rather jump into the private sector and go where I can start to make some money. And then, eventually I realized that I have a entrepreneurial bug and I can build my own businesses and do things the way that I want to do them. And then also, make a good living while I do this.
Do you feel, does entrepreneurship, did you grow up around entrepreneurship, or was it just kind of something you figured out as your personality trait down the line?
I think so. Yeah, I know I didn't grow up around that. I mean, my mom worked at a deli for my entire childhood. So no, I didn't grow up around that. It was something where it's like my personality is such that I have to have a great deal of respect for someone to be able to listen to them, or I have to figure it out on my own. And I just looked around the fitness industry, and I was like, I think really the best way to do this is to figure out how to work for yourself. And then it just grew from there. I think that there's this, and I think it's common to most entrepreneurial folks, is I have this drive to continually get better and to figure out new ways to do things and better ways to do things. And I have this sometimes maybe annoying optimism where it's like, well, I'll figure it out. I don't know. Like, I'll just figure it out, man. So, yeah.
And so you and Chris meet, and you're like, let's do this gym thing. Or was there
no?
Was there a dating process?
There was a dating process. I convinced him to come lift with me at our powerlifting gym.
Okay.
Because he was a trainer at the gym, and I was coming in as an intern and hoping to get a job, and so we would work out together because I heard him listening to some music that I would like, and honestly, like, there weren't many other people at the gym that I could connect with because it was kind of a weird, backward kind of place.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I initially connected with him. We started working out together, and so I invited him over to lift at our powerlifting gym, which was just insane. It was nuts. Like, there were times where I'd put a sixer down during a squat session, man. Like, it was ridiculous, but it was fun. It was ridiculous, but it was fun.
Right. That's awesome.
And so it was like the first time of like anybody really forcing him to lift heavy weight.
Okay.
And because I remember he walked in the door, and I was like, "Hey man, have you ever benched 225?" He's like, "Oh God, no." I was like, "You will today." And it was just one of those places where you didn't have any choice. Like, you're doing the thing, And so we created a pretty good bond there. And he ended up moving down here to the DC area, and I was still in Pennsylvania. But my girlfriend at the time, she was moving down here to play rugby. And I didn't feel a strong attachment to central Pennsylvania at that point. So I was like, well, I'll go with you. And so we came down here, and Chris and I had dinner with our girlfriends at this Thai restaurant in Falls Church, Virginia. And I said, I have this idea to start an online business where we train people. And this was 2010. And we had no clue what we were doing. We figured like, wow, we'll just make a cool website, and then we'll hit all of our old clients up, and we'll do this, and we'll have clients. And it obviously does not work that way. So we learned that pretty quickly. But then the goal was to us to eventually him have a gym here and me have a gym in Pennsylvania. And kind of under the same banner and the same brand. And so he got his going here, and then I could never really get it going in Pennsylvania, whether it was getting the funding and then losing it, or having a space, but then the zoning not working out and all these changes, and I got really frustrated. So I just ended up going to I went up to Ramphone Training Systems, and I worked for Mike Ramphone for 2 years. And then that ran its course, and I was like, well, I'm ready to move on and go do something else. And so I left there. I moved back to Pennsylvania for about 7, 8, 9 months, somewhere in there, and went into like this semi-monkhood sabbatical type thing where I just fished and hunted with my buddies. And that's when we started Strength Faction. And then it got to the point where I was driving down here all the time to work with Chris on Strength Faction. I was driving back and forth. And Chris was like, well, I want to grow the staff, and I want to be able to grow the gym. And pretty much my main gig at Ramphone Training Systems was running an internship program and developing the staff and everything. And so he's like, well, I'd like for you to come down here and do that. And then if it works out, I'll just give you ownership in the gym. And so that was 2016, and I've been here ever since.
And I mean, kind of going back to the Strength Faction. So, I mean, tell a little bit more about that. Like, what was the impetus behind it? What was the goal behind it? Was there was there something in the industry that you're like, hey, I don't like, or this is missing? Like, where did that idea come from?
Well, honestly, the original impetus was Chris and I in 2013, before I moved to Connecticut. We had this plan to create an online coaching program for other dudes. And so when I left Connecticut, I called Chris and I was like, hey man, we're going to do that thing. He's like, okay. And I was like, well, I'm going to post a thing about a trial today, and we'll figure out what we're doing after that. So we didn't have any plans. We didn't know exactly what we were going to do. I was like, we were just doing something. We got to make moves. And so we started that. But the thing was, like, everybody that signed up, they were all trainers. And so we had our programming, like we were going to program and for them and help them have their own transformation. But they just kept peppering us with questions about how we coached, about how we wrote the programs, about how we did all of those things. And I should actually take a step back. Spring before that, I did a presentation for a Crunch Fitness here in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. I drove down from Connecticut to do it. And I invited Chris along. So I did all of my coaching stuff, like progressions, regressions, how to teach barbell movements, cueing, creating an environment, all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, Chris, why don't you come over and do your program design thing? I think that would be a really good balance for people, so they kind of get both. And so that was kind of the initial, like, well, what if we just put all of that together again? Because I had all of this coaching stuff already done. He had all this program design stuff already done. So we're training all of these trainers, and we're like, well, we just started answering their questions. And so we started building it out into lessons, and we did all of that. And then we were like, well, I guess this is actually what we should be doing, because it looks like this is what people are hungry for. And there's a lot of times with program design and like how to actually teach a client how to do something. Like, those are the two things that people are perpetually afraid of, and that we have a fair amount of confidence with, and that we do really well. And so we just started solving that problem for people, and it took off really fast because people were hungry for something like that, and that went in depth with it,
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think at certifications they kind of gloss over. Like, they give you a little bit, but they don't really go into how you execute on it. So when was Strength Faction? Do you remember what year that was?
It started in 2015.
Okay. See, I mean, you guys are still doing it, and it's still going strong.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We're in different roles now. So Chris and I, we mostly run the the business mentorship part of it, and then I am in the functioning CEO role, and we have our guys that were mentors before, Wes Showalter and Ross Oberlin. They're the coaches of the actual Strength Faction coaching program right now, which is pretty cool.
Cool. So they went through the program and basically learned from you guys, and now that's kind of a cool transition.
Yeah. And they were mentors for years. Like they've been just ride or die for years and years now. I mean, since 2016. And so we were like, you know what? It's time for us to put them in the position to, do more for themselves. And then also, like, as far as the pulse of the industry and the way that they do things, Wes and Ross are much more dialed in with that than I am right now. So I was like, well, I'm good at organization. I'm good at making sure that, we have the vision and people are in the places that they need to be in. Like, you guys are actually good on executing with what people really, really need right now. So we put everybody in the right seat to be successful.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a huge part in building any business, right? Is having the right people in the right seats.
Oh, without a doubt.
It just makes everything easier.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's dysfunctional without it, but yeah.
Right. So, all right. So you and Chris decide to do the gym thing, or you jump on and you kind of help Chris do the gym thing. And I mean, it was a kind of a semi-private training mainly, right? Type of facility, all custom programming, all that kind of stuff, right?
It was, yeah.
And then, I mean, you guys made a big shift, right? Pandemic hits, everyone kind of reevaluates what they're doing, and you guys made a major model shift.
Yeah, we did. It was one of those things where Chris had a change of vision in 2018, where he's like, because we have been delivering these programs for Strength Faction for years, where it's like, here's this templated program, and we taught people how to individualize it for themselves. And we have been doing it since, we started Strength Faction. And Chris was like, well, what if we had a gym like that? And kind of tabled the idea. He's like, well, we can't do it now. Maybe it would be a different facility. Maybe we would do all this. And so we just didn't pursue it. We were both like, yeah, that's really cool. I like that. But we just didn't do it because, like, well, it wouldn't work with this clientele. It wouldn't do all this. And, we ended up taking some poor advice about who we should be marketing to. And, essentially selling to people that aren't like you, but the people that can pay and will come. And so we took some bad advice there, and we had a gym full, not a gym full, but we did not have the gym we wanted. And we were frustrated with the clientele we had, the energy of the place. We had people that were coming to us to be fixed, and really what we wanted to train was people that were coming to us to kick ass. And so, because that's what we do. That's how we like to train. We want people that want to get after it. I mean, in an intelligent way. And we didn't have that, and we got really, really frustrated with it, and we fell out of love with our business. And so, pandemic hits. We got kicked in the teeth. I think we lost 60 or 70 clients throughout the pandemic. And so we scraped along, we scrapped it out, and we got through it. And then, we got to the point where we realized some of the hires that we made weren't the best hires. And after supporting these folks through the pandemic, they kind of showed their true colors. And we were like, well, they don't want to be here. We don't want to do this shit anymore. Like, then let's do what we want to do. And here's what we're going to do. And then we just did the whole rebrand and the model change for what we do now with Beyond Strength. And it's awesome. I mean, we have fun every day. We train with our clients. We'll jump into class and do things with them. I have fun designing the programs. Like, it's fun to coach again. Like, it's just been a breath of life for both of us in a lot of different ways. Because we decided, what if we just train people like us? Because it's way easy to market to people that are like you, because they just want to do the same things that you do. Right. And so that was the big shift that we made.
So, I mean, as far as the model goes, kind of explain the major differences in the model. You kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I mean, what was the biggest shift?
There's one program for the whole gym. And based on the outcome of our testing and our assessment, we individualize each person's path through that program. So it's scaled, and then we have different types of training on different days. So based on a lot of our clients train 4 or 5 days a week in our system, but based on what you need, we can tailor the intensity level, we tailor the days that you come, and we tailor the exercises that you do based on this really well-designed scaled program that we write. And it's just saved us a ton of time and headaches with individualizing programs for people that you don't really need an individualized program. You need an individualized path through a good program, but you don't need all of this special ass padding that a lot of people make you believe that you need. And it created a different energy because people were really doing the same thing and going through the same process again. And it forged our community to be tighter again, especially inside the gym, rather than like, well, you know, this person's off doing this thing and this person's off doing this thing. And now we have all these people aimed right at the same thing and doing it together.
Did you find it challenging to move? I mean, because if you have, I mean, you had clients before and you have clients afterwards, but like you're kind of changing someone's world when this is how they think they should be doing it, and now they're moving to a different one. Did you see a lot of blowback from clients that, you know, this was a big shift for them?
I mean, people were nervous for sure. I mean, they, how do I want to say it? I mean, they were suspicious, they were nervous, and we just asked them to trust us. And because we did it really fast, but we were like, hey, we're going to give you guys 6 weeks. In that 6 weeks, if you're like, you know what, if this isn't for you, that's fine. You can bail. It's all good. But we came in and we gave it a ton of energy and we showed them what they could get from that. And people fell in love with it. We only, through that process, we ran the numbers. We were prepared to lose 50% of our clients if we had to. Okay. We ran the numbers like, what can we lose and still be okay? And it was about 50% of our clients. We lost 4. That was it. Through the entire process.
That's awesome, especially with the shift. And, you know, I mean, your guys were pretty much programming for each person. Like, here is your program, here's your program, here's your program. And now it's still like, I've seen behind the curtain. And so, I mean, I've taken a lot away from you guys and how you're doing things and how we're operating a lot of our stuff, because it just makes sense. And from like, sometimes I think as coaches, we get caught in this, like, I need to have this perfect program for this client, which is really like, you just need to pick the right exercise for their level and where they want to go, and sets and reps and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, that just depends on the goal.
Is the program aimed at something? Okay, well then, like, the loading parameters are going to be relatively the same. You might have to scale back the amount for some people or whatever it might be, and then you just put them in the positions that they need to be in, and you let them train. I think we went through a period in the industry where, you know, movement stuff got very popular, and, you know, and I think that that's still important. Like, we still have to evaluate movement and we have to train movement, but I think people way overemphasize that. And it made people feel like we have to write these special things for every person, like they're going to break. And it's like, no, people just need to train. That's how they don't break, you know? So.
And so now what type of client are you attracting now? Is it the kind of 20 to 40 year old? Like, I mean, yeah.
About 25 to 45, already active people that have exercise experience, people that are already kind of on the move and just wanted to dial in. They wanted to do it in a smarter way. So, not to be a jerk, but our joke is our gym is for people that would like to do CrossFit but know better. So that's our joke. Right. But that's the kind of folks, like, people that want to get after it. They want to do it in an intelligent way, and they're doing it so they can do things outside of the gym. It's not like we just have gym rats. Like, we have people that want to train so that they can go hike, so that they can go do these other events, so they can live a big, full physical life. Those are the type of people that we have.
And I mean, because, you know, both you and Chris are very involved in outside things. Like, I mean, you're carrying elk out of the mountains and salmon out of the rivers and all of that kind of stuff, right? And so it really fits in with your guys' ethos. It's
a cultural thing too. That was the interesting thing about it when we made the switch, where it's like, you know, we're nervous that we could lose 50% of our people. We were prepared for that, but it was interesting that people became the type of client that we wanted to train when culturally top down. We just said, this is it. Here's the line in the sand. Here's how we're doing things. And people saw how cool it was. I mean, obviously we did a good job with the presentation and mitigating the risk for people and making people feel comfortable. But then we just kicked ass and people are like, oh, this is awesome. And so, when the culture comes from the top down, and people mold themselves into the culture if you do a good job with that.
As a gym owner, Coach Catalyst is the key to having low turnover. For several years, I struggled and spent 10 to 20 hours a week communicating with clients via phone calls, Facebook Messenger, email, and text messages. I had tried everything to make my life more efficient. I was at my wit's end. And then I found Coach Catalyst. Since starting the software, I have found a life again, and my clients are thanking me for being so involved in their fitness life. I've cut my daily commitment to interacting with over 300 clients to under 15 minutes a day and have streamlined my 6-week challenges. I couldn't recommend it more. I just don't know if I would even be here today if it wasn't for Coach Catalyst. If you don't have an account already, you're missing out and not helping the people you could be.
So obviously this model's working for you guys. You're happy with it. Is it like better for you financially as well because it's like a group model versus a semi-private model?
Yeah, I mean the overhead's way lower. I mean, incredibly. I mean, because we were paying coaches to write programs for us.
Right.
So we had them writing programs. So there was all of that time.
Yep.
There were the coaching. We would have 2 coaches on at all times. Now we only have 1 coach on at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't able to handle the same amount of volume that we have now. So the quality of the training, in my mind, not in my mind, it has gotten better. Like we have the data from our testing weeks and everything to say like our training has improved, and we've done it in a much more efficient model that works, makes the business run smoother, and is much more profitable. So absolutely.
And I mean, what's your guys' kind of game plan then? Is it, all right, cool, we've got this thing working. Do we create a few more of these? Is it, hey, I love this thing, but I'm also kind of an entrepreneur and I like to do other things? Have you thought about kind of what's next?
Yeah, it's all kind of both. I mean, I don't know that there will be another one of these, but it is our launching point to be able to do other things that we want to do. So we have some crazy challenge things that we're thinking about, building a business around and event type things. I run Human Predator Pack Mule, which is my hunting training business. So it gives us the platform to experiment and also have a business that's profitable and runs really well. But it also gives us that freedom to do the other things that we want to do as well.
How did you come up with the name Human Predator Pack Mule? Look, where did that come from?
It's the foundational ethos, man. So the way it goes is you have to be a human first, right? You have to mentally and emotionally have yourself in the right place. You have to physically have yourself in the right place, and then you can go into the woods, the backcountry, whatever it is, and then you can be a predator, and you can do that efficiently, and you can do it with a clear head. And you can do it with a body that's able to handle the things that you need it to do. And then from there, if you're successful, you can be a pack mule. You can pull all that, like you said, walking elk out of the woods on your back. You're prepared to do that. And so it's like the foundational, these are the 3 pieces that you need to have to go in and be a successful hunter. So that's why I named it that.
I love it. And that's really geared towards your kind of backcountry hunter type person.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I train some folks that are just into going hiking and getting into the backcountry that way too, but it's mostly men and women that have gnarly hunts and they want to be ready for them.
And I mean, did you fall into that niche just because it's something that you're really interested in, and so you kind of hunt in those circles, and then you're kind of, I also have this strength conditioning background and I can help you guys be more effective?
I mean, yeah, in a way. When I got into it, I went looking for a resource. You know, I was like, well, I've been a strength and conditioning coach for almost 20 years, but there's somebody that knows more about this than I do. And so I went looking in that industry for information, or, you know, where's a program? I'll follow, I'll put my ego aside and I'll follow what somebody else wants to do. And I just went looking and it was all garbage. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to do this for myself. And so I did it for myself. And then some of my friends were like, well, can you help me? And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to do this thing because I think people need it, because that the hunting fitness industry is abysmal. It is like, it's 20 years behind anything that we're all doing. You know what I mean? And so it's an easy niche to get in there and have a very, very different message than what everybody else is saying, because it's a bunch of hardo, dumb stuff that that people say. And do something intelligently and get people results, like it's just it's fun for me. It's seamless because I'm already going to do it for myself, and it's like I get to educate this whole new group of people and improve the way that they do something that they love. So it's like it just checks all the boxes, man.
So there's your online coaching right there, right?
Yeah.
Like that's awesome. Yep. And so, I mean, you've got a number of different things, we've got the strength faction stuff. You've got the online coaching, you've got the gym, amongst other things. Like, how do you structure it so that, you keep all these balls in the air?
Yeah. I mean, clarity and one project at a time, I think is like, this is what we're trying to do. These are the roles that I play.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just play those roles. So, I mean, for the gym, for example, I'm in charge of making sure that, I write the programs. Right now I write the programs. Chris and I go back and forth on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible for making sure that the coaching staff is dialed in on delivering our product. And then I'm a writer and a photographer here. So it's like, those are like my marketing pieces. And then from there, it's Chris and I in a kind of a switch off of I don't know, we fill in all of the C-suite roles in some way, shape, or form, and kind of trade the different skill sets that we have there. But we have clarity on the things that we need to do. And then from the other things, it's like, what do I need to do and what do I not need to do? And so one of the biggest challenges, I think, for people that are entrepreneurial is beginning to figure out the skill of delegating and making sure that people are in the positions to do job better than you can do it. And that's where it got to a strength faction. One of the things that I realized is like, well, Wes and Ross are going to run this program way better than I can run it right now. And so I need to put them in the position to do that. And I need to be their mentor and their advisor and make sure that I'm giving them the information and the support and everything that they need to execute. And so I think it's, first of all, knowing what you want from each of them, and knowing what each of them gives back to you, and then having clarity and then a plan. And then day to day, it's just like, I break it down by project. Like, what are the things that have to be done to move the needle today? And if it's not something that needs to be done to move the needle, I just don't worry about it,
Do you have any process for really trying to figure out what you want from a business? Or is it like plan it in your head and go sit in the woods for a while and come out with a better answer?
It's taken me a long. I mean, it's probably only been recently where I've gotten to that level of clarity. Because at the beginning, it's just like you're charging and you just want to do the thing.
Yep.
And now it's to the point where like, how does this serve me? Not necessarily how do I serve it back. So I guess it's just been recently that I've really gotten into that. And I think about what sense of purpose does this scratch for me? Like, if it doesn't feel like I'm doing something purposeful, I have a real hard time doing anything. And then, is this worth it financially? Because it's like, if it's not worth it financially, then it's just turning into a hobby. And it's like, okay, well, I have enough hobbies, so do I need to do this?
Right.
And so it's really purpose and then financial sense. And if I look like, one of the reasons that with Human Predator Pack Mule, it's like purpose-wise, it scratches a big itch for me. It's something I'm going to do anyway, and I think there's a huge financial upside there, without totally destroying the rest of my life to make that happen. So I think that those are kind of the filters that I run through with it.
And it's probably something that's just kind of evolved over time, because whenever we start a new project, it's just like head down, get this thing off the ground, and then finally you come up for air, and it's like, all right, what do I want from this thing? Do I want to keep this thing going? And so as far as your time, do you kind of split it evenly with the different projects, or is the gym, or you kind of depend on what certain things need?
Yeah, it depends on the time of year. It depends on exactly what needs. Like if we have a lot going on at the gym, like that gets more of my attention. If the gym doesn't need as much from me right now, I'll work harder on Human Predator Pack Mule, and with Strength Faction, it's since I've transitioned to, it's like I meet with the guys once per week. I'll do marketing materials for them. I'll do copywriting, and I'll do the guidance role. And then those guys are kicking ass, so I'm just going to stay out of their way. They know what to do. They've been around for almost 7 years. They know what to do.
What do you think is a skill that most coaches don't think they need, and you don't figure it out until you've been in the industry for a bit?
a good question. They don't know that they need.
You don't really know that this would be useful until you're in the industry. So I have one that I think, and I'll kind of let you think on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think writing. I think if you're a good writer, it makes everything else better. So, and it allows you more flexibility in what you're doing. And I think if you're a good writer, you create better clarity of thought, or at least forces you, because writing slows you down to force you to be clear about what you're thinking. And I think it help develop better thoughts. And I don't think that's something that when I got into coaching, I just wanted to train people. Like I just wanted to help people. And I never really thought of that as a skill until I got more into like the business side of things, where writing is a very important skill when you're starting to look at marketing. And
I know I agree with that a million percent. Writing is, for all the reasons that you just said, I agree with that. I'll tell you what I think it is. I think the skills, a combination of skills of discernment and how to learn, because people in the fitness industry are education junkies. Mm-hmm. So it's like taking this course, I'm doing this thing, like I'm reading this book.
Right.
I went to this weekend workshop, and then it's like great, like you have this pattern of wanting to go learn. But how are you using that? How are you actually learning? How are you creating it, integrating it into your experience so it's actually something that you understand and then can use? And then I think from there, it becomes discernment about what's worth spending your time on or not, because there's a million options. And it's like, so really understanding what you need to learn, where your holes are, and then actually learning how to learn that thing and what you do to learn that thing. I think that's really, really important. And then, because it just becomes like a form of masturbation, where it's like, well, I read that book too, and everybody just reads these same damn books, and like it doesn't matter because you don't do anything with it. And I think it's really discernment, understanding how to learn, what you need to learn, and then using that to create experiential knowledge. Because just because you read it in a book and you can recite it doesn't mean you know a damn thing about it.
Mm-hmm. So if you knew that you were going to end up where you are now, how would you have changed the path to get there to be maybe more efficient or more effective? I mean, it's a kind of a hard question, because obviously the route that we take influences our experiences and kind of how we ultimately got to where we got to. But let's talk about a new coach, right? There's a new coach that they love coaching. They want to get into coaching. They've been training themselves for a long time. There's the kind of the traditional 4-year university path that a lot of people go down. And so I just kind of want to know what do you feel like is from your perspective a better model to get to where they want to get to?
I mean, it's tough for me not to say to join something like Strength Action, because it's experiential. You're gonna learn alongside people that actually do this every day,
right? And
they'll mentor you through the process. And I think it's programs like that, because they say you went to a 4-year degree. They're not going to teach you how to coach anybody. They might throw psychological terms at you. You might have this foundational understanding of things. They're not going to teach you how to write a good program. They're not going to teach you how to do any of that stuff. And so I think it's practical knowledge from people that do. So I kind of had that path. Like I just did, because I wanted to learn how to train myself for powerlifting, and I wanted to, know all of that kind of stuff. So I did it. But I think having a mentor like we have in Strength Faction when I was first getting started would have helped me hugely and saved me a lot of time. Because I think there's also the other skills where, I think maybe you can speak to this as well. When you're first coming in, you think it's just, if you build it, they will come.
Right.
I'm a good trainer. I'm a good trainer. People are going to realize that. And there's partially, yes, like if you do a good job and you connect with people are going to refer people to you. Like that's a big piece of the thing. But especially if you want to be in business for yourself, like there are all these other skills that you need to learn, and marketing's one of them, and sales is another one, and understanding how to make sure that your numbers work is another one, and having people that can teach you how to do that within the context of the fitness industry, I think is really important.
Yeah. Personally for me, kind of in my journey, when I hired a business coach, I probably made the most progress as a coach, because like I just was starting to understand everything else behind the scenes that you need to know. that even if you are working for another gym, I think it's valuable information because you can become even a more valuable asset to that gym.
Absolutely.
I don't think that gym ownership is like the pinnacle that I think in our industry. That kind of feels like our industry is hard, right? Because there's not this like ladder where I'm a junior and then I'm a senior and then I'm a partner and then whatever. But a lot of people kind of think that gym ownership is like the ultimate pinnacle. And yeah, that's great for some people. But I think understanding yourself and what's going to make you tick, because once you decide to go down that path, now, like for example, like I have a gym with multiple employees, I'm responsible for those people's paychecks and making sure that that they're getting what they need out of it every day. And I'm less concerned about is Susie squatting well today. And so those are different skill sets, and those are different. And some people you just keep going down the rabbit hole, and that's ultimately you come up for water, and that's where you're at. And you're like, man, I just want to train people. And it's sometimes hard to go back from that.
I think that, and that's where I think that Eric Cressy and Pete Dupuis were brilliant, where Eric had the self-awareness to know that like he needed somebody else for the business side so he could be the technician and be interested in the things that he was interested in, and so he could go do them. Mm-hmm. So I think that level of self-awareness is really important. That's where it's like, Chris and I are getting to the point in our career where we're way more dialed in with that. And the interesting is we have a lot of complementary skill sets, but we have a lot of the same skill sets and same personality traits. So navigating that can sometimes be interesting because for example, we both like to create. We both like to make things. Mm-hmm. And we're both doers. Like we'll just go do the thing. But there are certain aspects of our business that we need somebody else to just go do the thing because we like making things. Like I want to write. I want to take pictures. I want to do those kind of things for the business right now. And we need someone that's like more administratively minded than he or I are. So I think it's that level of self-awareness about what you want to do, especially when you get to the point where your business is mature enough for you to make that decision, I think is important. But I think it's to have that self-awareness before you really start rolling things down the path and using that knowledge to make decisions, I think would have saved us some heartache and some time at some point in our career.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of this stuff, you don't really understand it until you've gone through it. Like you can talk about it, you can read all the books on it, but you kind of have to be in the thick of it in order to really understand it. But how quickly can you come out of that thick is, I think, the difference between whether I like what I'm doing or I'm not.
Accelerating the process for somebody else is good too, because like sure, maybe you need that experience, but maybe you didn't need to get kicked in the face for as long as we did either.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. 100%. Yeah, I don't know. And this is maybe a conversation for even another day, but just the idea of like the university, right? Like, so I went to a university as well, but I went because I have basketball. Like, so basketball was like my North Star, and I'm like, I'll go wherever I'm going to keep playing. And so that was my driver to go to the university, and I loved exercise science, and so that's ultimately where I ended up. But when I look back on it now, I was like, to get to where I am today, like I don't know if that was the most efficient route, but
no, I don't think so either. I don't like college or university. I think it's a load of shit, honestly. But I mean, it is like when you're 18 and you don't know any better, and
right.
you just don't know. Like, and especially when everybody's like, you got to have a college degree, you
right.
do this. And
yeah.
So, I don't think that's the truth anymore.
No, and I think the internet and kind of education online, you can really be whatever you want for free on the internet just because the information's there.
Absolutely. You can learn anything you want, and it doesn't have to be filtered through some person that has a perspective that's 20 years behind the times and is trying to curate this information for you in a way that doesn't apply in the same context. So
right.
I don't know.
So, I mean, so you've been in the industry for, almost 20 years. I mean, where do you see it's going in the next 5? Like, where from your deer stand, do you see like the industry headed?
That's a good question, man. I think that what we've learned is that things like Peloton and everything are going to do well. But I think people still want human connection. So I think that training gyms are going to continue to be popular. I think in the boutique industry is going to continue to be popular. I think that people I think the hybrid models that people are running right now, I think that they're going to be, I think that that's going to be, I think it's going to continue. I don't see that changing because, I would love to say that there's going to be this grandiose change that I can predict, but I mean, first of all, it's like what we're really good is doing is making guesses about the future, and what we're really good at is being wrong about the future. But I think that's being human,
right?
But I don't ever foresee people not wanting human connection,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that people are always going to want to have a gym to go to. It'll be interesting to see how those gyms function, but I think there'll be some form of hybrid model. I think what you'll see is things will probably get more niched down,
Mm-hmm.
because people are going to figure out how to market better, but also, there's going to be, the industry is going to grow, and I think there's going to be a lot of options, and so you're going to have to be more specific in who you want to train, and really, really talk to them, or you're not going to wade through the noise because of everything that's on social media and whatever new social media platforms might come out. I think you need to speak right to the person that you want to work with. And there's not any difference from that now, but I think it's going to continue to be the sake in the future.
Right. And it maybe almost be amplified. Because I mean, we even see with look at Peloton stock, right? Like pre-pandemic, during pandemic, and now post-pandemic, it's starting to come back down. And so, like, I wholeheartedly agree with the human connection thing, where like working out at home is great, but you know what? I like working out with my buddies a whole lot more than I like in my basement staring at the walls swinging a kettlebell.
Yeah, and people want a place to go, man. Like that's, it's, if you look at all of the other things that used to be, that people used to do,
Mm-hmm.
socially. People still do it, but it's not. People are far more secular now, so people don't go to church like they used to. They aren't in these functions. So people want a place to go. They want connection. They want challenge as life gets persistently easier. In some ways, who the hell knows? We might have something real hard coming on the horizon. We don't know that, but people want that. People want things that affirm the fact that they're alive and they can do things, and they want to be around other people. So I think that a gym is consistently going to be that place. I think you just have to really get good at speaking it to the person that you want to train and should train with you.
And at Beyond Strength, are you guys doing anything strategically to help with that connection aspect? Or is it more just the nature of group training?
I think it's, partially we speak to the person that we want to train, and I think that that's hugely important. But it's fun, dude. Like, it's just fun. One of the things that, we just wrote a new job ad, and the first thing that I wrote in it was like, you can't be a stick in the mud. Like, we want you to want to train. We want you to understand training. We want you to be a good coach with experience. But like, if you're not going to come in here and have fun and help our clients have fun, then we don't want you. Because it's like, that's why our people come, because they know that we know what they're doing.
Right.
They know what we're doing, and we can help them get to where they want to be. But it's also just a fun environment, and we act like goofballs while we also get them to the places that they want to go. And I think that that's really one of the biggest things is Chris and I have far more injected our personalities into this place. And we've recruited personalities, and we've brought back personalities that fit. And that's been huge.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
And so on that note with Chris, do you feel like it's better doing it with a partner, someone like Chris, than if you were kind of the sole driver behind this thing? Or Chris was the sole driver? I mean, just basically, like, do I do it with someone, or is it would you rather go it alone?
I think it depends, man. I mean, typically, in the past, our default answer was like, don't have a partner, because Chris and I are special. The way that we get along and our relationship is special. But if you have someone that you can really trust, that you have complementary skill sets with, and some of the same skill sets with, you have a shared vision, you have shared values, then I think that you can do that. I think having a partner is a really good thing because it disperses the workload. But I mean, and you have someone that's like, you have the support and you have this idea share and you can build momentum with that. So I guess I'm torn on that. I think it's an individually dependent thing. I think some people should have business partners and some people shouldn't. When it comes to that, where it's like some people just need to be the top of the ship, and then they have really good people that work for them and they take care of those people. But partnerships, I think, can be dicey. So I think you really need to know the person and know what you're getting into. Chris and I got lucky, dude. We started doing shit together when we were young, and it just worked out that we were the right people to do stuff together. We got lucky. It wasn't one of these things where I did this critical evaluation. This is all post hoc. Like, I know how to do that now, But making those decisions when I was younger, I didn't know how to do that. But I would say for people now, those are the things that I would consider if I was going to go into business with someone as a partner.
How long did you and Chris know each other before you ultimately started in business together?
Oh God, not long.
Okay.
It was, so I met him in like the fall of 2009, and we incorporated our business together in the fall of 2010.
Okay. So not that long.
Not long at all. No.
So for you, I mean, at that point, it was kind of just a feel where, hey, like, I trust this guy, we've been training together, and, this is a good fit.
We were really good friends. And I think that one of the things about Chris and I is we have a very understanding relationship. Chris knows me probably better than any other person on the planet. And I'm a very forceful, and I can be a very charismatic person. And a lot of time that's a big drawback for me because people won't tell me the truth. But Chris always told me the truth, and I respected him for that. And Chris would call me on my bullshit, and I respected him for that. And so that was a big, as we got onto our relationship, that was a big thing. But in the beginning, it was just like, this guy's excited about shit. He wants to go somewhere. He wants to do things. He wants to build, and he's cool to be around. And that's really all it was at that point. Yeah.
Did you guys put anything into the agreement or contract at the beginning? Like, did you have anything in your operating agreement where if one person wants out, here is how we deal with it?
Just no. We just had ownership percentages. Right. That was it. Yeah, we didn't do anything like that at all because we didn't know that we needed to.
Right. Yeah. That's usually how everything starts, right? Like, and so, I mean, I've had a number of different businesses and have had some solo and had some with partners, and it's different when you have a partner. Like, you have someone that kind of has equal interest in it, that is invested as you are, and that you can bounce ideas off of. And I would agree with you, and I think it's very personal, and I think it depends on the business that you're running and how involved you want to be and all of those kind of things. But one thing you guys are doing at Beyond Strength too is you're doing the workout thing, but you guys are looking at more than just, you're trying to build superhumans, and so that's more than just workouts. Yeah. So you guys are looking at lifestyle too, right?
We do. I mean, that's one of the baseline things that we do. We call it walk, water, sleep. We work on that, and it's more of a cultural thing. We don't do a ton of coaching on that right now, but one of the things that we do build into a lot of our coaching are different mental skills. Like we did the first phase of the year. First block of training of this year. For us at our gym, a block of training is 3 months. Had 3 phases that were just gnarly, and throughout those phases, we worked on things like really, I call it like taking stock. Like, is this really does what you're feeling right now stop you from getting to your goal? So things like creating awareness about like and being able to introspect and understand where you're really at. So we worked on skills like that. Work on skills like compartmentalization.
So when you say work on skills, is this like kind of prompts? You guys like you have a whiteboard that you're throwing a prompt on for people to think about? Is it emails?
It's just coaching. It's just the coaching. It's just the way that we do the coaching. And so the way that we would do it as we executed the class. So like being able to pull people back away from, all right, I feel a certain way. Does that stop me from executing? Or just drawing, compartmentalization into like, we're going to focus on each rep individually, because if you start thinking about the end, you're going to have a real bad time. Mm-hmm. And just also, you know what I mean? So working on skills like awareness and compartmentalization and other mental skills that play into being successful in our environment, but also outside of our environment. And so that's really the main way that we do that, because, anybody can go suffer through something hard.
Right.
Not anybody can do it, but like you can go do something hard and be like, wow, but like, do you know how to do that and regulate yourself? Like that is more of what we focus on.
So you made a statement a little bit ago about life being easy and kind of doing hard things. Are you attracted to going out into the forest of Montana and hunting an 800-pound elk and then having to drag it out of there? I don't even know. Is an elk 800 pounds? How big is an elk?
A bull elk is about 800 pounds.
Okay.
That was a good guess.
All right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is it part of like, I want to do challenging things in life, and this is a way for me to kind of scratch that itch?
Partially. Yeah. I mean, there's the part of me that never got to do the really, really hard thing that I wanted to do, and so part of this scratches that itch. There's another part where it's just like, I want to be there. I live in suburbia. I don't like suburbia. So being able to go into extremely rural places and just be there is important to me. Mm-hmm. But there is a big element of like, I know not everybody can do this, and I know not everybody wants to do this, and not everybody would do it in the way that I want to do it. Mm-hmm. So yes, that absolutely plays a part of it. Doing hard things, and it also just makes you feel alive.
Right.
And every time I have one of those, like I'm going to Alaska for like 20 days in September, and there's going to be mental challenges, emotional challenges, physical challenges. And I know that when I land back in Virginia at the end of the month, I'll be a different person. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very, very much drawn to that.
Has hunting been something that is always like, did you grow up doing it? Is it in the family? Has it always been something that you've done?
So I started doing it when I was a little kid. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I killed my first deer when I was like 8 years old.
Okay.
But then I got to college, and with football and everything, and I just had to really sit back and examine why I was doing it. So I stopped hunting for about a decade, and then picked it up again in my late 20s. And since then, I've been just, this is what I do. I have created my businesses and my lifestyle so that I can go do these things.
Mm-hmm. And you do a pretty good job of kind of being able to do those things, right? Balancing that. Is there anything that you're really conscious about? I mean, do you set your schedule in a way? Are you planning out the year where I'm doing these hunts and then just kind of planning everything around that? Or is there anything special there?
I kind of work, I periodize type of like my work. Mm-hmm. So the same way that you'd kind of periodize a strength and conditioning training program. So I do that both at like the quarterly and monthly level, but I also do it at the weekly level. And so I actually got shit from this because I did a presentation one time for one of our friends, and it was just for the wrong people for me to talk to. And I don't know why this bothered them so much, but it did. But I was like, I don't work hard every day. Don't. I think it's silly to try to do that. Like I have hard days, I have easy days, and I have medium days, and like I roll my schedule through the week based on that. And so I do that, and I just scale that out from a larger perspective. So like right now is a really hard working time for me. It's like I guess you would say an accumulation phase, because I know I want to be able to leave in September. Mm-hmm. And so, but on the back half of that hunting trip, I won't work as hard. Q4 of this year won't be as challenging as this Q2 is. But then it also depends on what we need from the business. But I think waiving the demands of what I do, knowing what I want to be able to do, is what allows me to do it.
Kind of prevents, you could call it burnout, right? It prevents just going too far in one end and just feeling like, this isn't fun anymore.
I've done that. I did that a few years ago, and it wasn't fun. Nothing was fun. I wasn't enjoying myself. I wasn't fun to be around. And I lost a relationship over some of my behavior. It also wasn't the best match for me, but nonetheless, like, I also was kind of being a psychopath. And so, yeah, I think that you have to, because, like, why are we doing this if you're not enjoying, like, you should enjoy your work, and you should enjoy the other stuff that you do too. So if you're not having that, like, how are you doing anything?
So was this kind of a strategy that you came up on your own? Like, just like, hey, I do this with training programs. I need to do this with my life. Or was there a book, or was there anything that kind of helped gain some clarity?
Our friend Sean runs a multi-million-dollar company.
Okay.
And one day I was bullshitting with him, and he told me about how he was structuring his employees' work week. And he said essentially that, like, we work really hard on this day, we tone her down on this day, we work hard again, we tone her down, and we have fun. I was like, well, I'm going to try that. I think that sounds like a really, really good idea for me too. And so for the past 2-3 years, I've been doing things that way, and it's helped me with recovery, both from mentally, emotionally, and physically. It's helped me with creativity, and it's also helped me with letting go of things, because, years ago I would work from 5 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, and it's not fun. Like, I guess it's one of those things that maybe you have phases where you might need to do stuff like that, but it's not necessary. And it really sucks the soul out of your life, and it sucks the soul out of your work. And so trying to follow this kind of schedule I'm able to say, you know what, like, this is how much I'm doing today. That's all I get done. Well, that's fine. I'm going to read for the rest of the evening, or play my guitar, or go hang out, or do something. And it creates some boundaries around work that have been healthy for me.
Okay. So when you say easy, kind of medium, or hard, is that determined on the number of hours, or is that like a task-based structure?
It's task-based, and potentially the amount of hours that I'm working. It's both. Just I kind of scale it on both of those things. But then, like, an easy day is like, there are like 2 boxes I got to check today. I'm checking those, and that is all I'm going to worry about.
And for someone that's involved in multiple different things, like, I would say that's impressive. That's a skill.
It is. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how impressive it is. I just know that I can't do it any other way now, because if I tried to go back to, it's just like, it's almost like I repel against it. Like, if I like start to, now, don't get me wrong, if it's like one of those things where, like, I'm in on a project and it feels good and it's fun and I'm going, like, I'll just go.
Yeah.
But I think you have to. Everything is undulates. So if you feel like you're just going to be this linear badass that just chops wood the same way all the time, like, it don't work that way. I'm not saying don't show up every day. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying show up every day, but you have to realize your capacity changes, and you have to account for that.
Just curious, what industry was your friend in?
Security stuff.
Okay. So was that with his employees? Was that with like kind of physical type stuff, or was it more mental work?
Mostly mental.
Okay. I mean, it's a really interesting concept. All right. So I've got some kind of like rapid fire type questions for you. I don't know if you peeked at them before, but we'll throw some at you. All right.
I didn't. So let's
even better. All right. So you have to choose one: taco, burrito, or quesadilla.
Burrito.
Burrito. Oh, burrito man. I like it. All right. If you had one restaurant and one restaurant only that you had to eat at for the rest of your life, what restaurant are you choosing?
Oof. Man, that is a very difficult question. I don't know what to say.
You can still cook food at home, but if you're going to go out, you're going to the same place every time.
I'm going to be honest with you, Trevor. I don't know if I have a restaurant that I love that much to be able to say this is the only place I'm going for the rest of my life.
All right. Well, if you think of one while we're going, I'm not going to put you.
Yeah, maybe it'll come to me.
Okay. All right. A purchase that you've made under $100 thereabouts, that's you feel like has had disproportionate value or a profound impact on your life?
The book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I think it cost me $8 the first time I bought it because I bought it used.
Okay.
And I've read it 4 or 5 times in my life, and every time it hits me a little bit differently, and I grow in some way every time. So.
And how many times do you say you've read it? 4 or 5 times?
4 or 5.
Okay. Kind of staying on that topic of books. If you are, and you guys do, you mentor new coaches in the industry. Do you kind of have a top 3 books that you feel like every new coach should read?
Well, sure. I think there are. They're not necessarily going to be coaching books, but I think young people in general should read The Slight Edge to kind of learn how to just get things done. I think that book's important. I would have them read Let the First Rep Suck, which is just like a really good coaching book by this guy. It's pretty bright. And then, man, a third coaching book, a third fitness industry book. So here's something that I have to admit to you. I don't read super broadly in the fitness industry, and here's why. Because, and this is silly. Don't get me wrong. This is silly. I'm being vulnerable right now, Trevor.
I love it.
I'm scared that my ideas are going to be too influenced by other people in our industry, and I want to be as original as I possibly can. So I don't read that much in the fitness industry. I read in other places, and then I figure out how to do things on my own. So the third book, I don't know. You can read anything by Dan John, and you're going to have a good time at least, if nothing else. You know what I mean? So.
I think that's a good. Really, anything he writes is entertaining. And he has a way of simplifying things that it's like, yeah, maybe this industry doesn't need to be as complicated as we make it out to be.
Without a doubt. Absolutely.
All right. Next one. Cartoon character. So if you're living in any cartoon world, you don't have to be a character, but you're going to live in a cartoon world. What cartoon world would you live in for a week?
Bob's Burgers.
Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. That show cracks me up, man. That shit's hilarious.
Interesting.
Yeah, Bob's Burgers.
Oh, I love it. All right, next one. If you could be reincarnated as an animal, based on your personality, what animal do you reincarnate as?
I don't know. I'll just say, so there's this, my great grandma's one husband brought back this tiger picture from Vietnam.
Okay.
And so I have this picture of this tiger walking through the jungle with a baby tiger in its mouth. And that's why we put a tiger on one of our new shirts at the gym. So I'm going to say tiger. I'm going to be a tiger.
I like it. And you got a little of that orange too going
exactly
on.
Right.
So it fits. It's perfect. All right. If you could have dinner with anyone, past or present, and hang out with them, is there anyone that you would love to have a conversation with, living or not living?
Can I can only say one.
Give me a couple. It's fine.
I'll give you 2.
Okay.
They're both music. I would love to hang out with Dave Grohl. I really like Dave Grohl a lot. I've looked up to him. It's actually when I was leaving Connecticut, I had to bankroll myself to be able to float myself for however long until I figured out my next move. And so one of the things I wrote was how much money I wanted to save that summer. And then the other thing I wrote was be the Dave Grohl of strength and conditioning, because I always thought Dave Grohl was just so cool and good to people, and he did things his way regardless of whether anybody thought anything of it. So,
and I'm not a music guy, so I don't even. Who is Dave Grohl?
Dave Grohl is the lead singer of the Foo Fighters.
And I'm sorry for offending you if I offended you with that.
You didn't offend me. No. But it's all good, man. It's all good. So Dave Grohl would be my number one. And I'd also really like to. There's so many people that I would do this, but because his music had such a profound influence on me when I was a little kid. James Hetfield, who's the lead singer of Metallica, I would love to hang out with him for a night. Yeah.
Okay. So is that how you and Chris bonded? Was it over that kind of music?
It was
genre?
music. It wasn't that kind of stuff.
Okay.
It was different. I heard him play something heavy, and we were in this really weird environment where people didn't listen to heavy music, and I was like, what's going on with this guy? And so that's what pulled me in. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's good for today, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing and being vulnerable and bringing out your inner tiger. And I love it.
That's like my spirit animal. If I could just be one thing, it'd be it.
It's awesome. I love it. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
man. No, I'm glad we got to chat, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.